here are some details that you could have missed in Season 2, Act 1 of Arcane. First up is that Teemo actually makes an appearance. Yes, Teemo shows up in the arcade that Jinx returns to, and he shows up as a game that you can play. Another way that Teemo shows up in Act 1 is actually through this child character who follows Jinx around. He wears a hat and it's very similar to the one that Teemo sports, that Bando Scout hat. Next up is that Mel and Jace surviving is actually very weird considering everyone else was hurt. They were the first ones in range for the blast, so it does bring back that moment where Mel shines golden for a split second, and it makes us maybe want to question that moment a bit more, considering how the two closest to the blast pretty much came out unscathed. Jace is actually very confused that he survives the blast without a scratch, whereas Victor almost dies from this.
It was right next to me. How does the explosion do that to him and I just walk out without a scratch?
Caitlyn's ribbon changes from blue to red after she takes over the Kiramans. Victor is again covered in that sky blue color, which I keep saying is important, after merging with the hex core. You can check out my other two videos about this, but basically that light blue color is tied to the inspiration rune, and I believe the hex core is also tied to it. Victor's decision to leave Jace is reinforced by the fact that he sees the weapon schematics that Jace was working on to arm Piltover's finest. After seeing those, I believe he made a silent mental decision to leave Jace behind, because the decisions that they had made on the technology have been breached, and I think he felt quite offended by that. So this is a cool one. The intro actually hints at the Black Rose long before we see them. We see Mbessa and Mal Madada both holding black roses in the intro. Another hint we get is this scene with Jinx and Caitlyn, where these violet petals fall and they turn black. Speaking about the black rose, Mbessa's general has this runic blade which helps fight off Amara. In League of Legends lore, Riven has one of these runic blades too, which was enchanted by, you guessed it, the leader of the Black Rose, LeBlanc. Mbessa's ship also has broken blades hung up on the wall as trophies, which I do believe is another shout out to Riven and her busted or broken runic blade. Other characters who could be getting very subtle shout outs here on that wall are characters like Garen, Darius and Katarina, with some of the blades looking very similar to their weapons. The black letter that Caitlyn gets was also given to Rennie by Mbessa. This would imply that this black invitation with the black badge is given out anytime a member of a major house of Piltover passes away. They then throw a memorial. Speaking of Piltover, there are banners of Jarvan 4 everywhere, and we can even see in the Madada residence there is a choir either practicing for a play which portrays Jarvan the 4th, or they are preparing for an audience with him. We'll find out later in the series what that is about, but we do get to see his crown in its replica glory. Oh yeah, for those who don't know, Jarvan is the Prince of Demacia, another city or region in the world of Runeterra or League of Legends. Victor is glowing. One more thing about Victor is that he looks like one of those mages that gives Heimerdinger PTSD, or the one who saved Jace in the snow. So we'll see what the parallel is there as the series develops. Speaking about Heimerdinger, the Brambleback has left the jungle.
The Brambleback has left the jungle.
This is of course a reference to the red Brambleback, which is found in the jungle of League of Legends Summoner's Rift. It's a call out to that. Of course, he says this to Echo as code, and Echo is just thinking, what the hell is this Yordo on about? Another thing about Echo is that Jace and Echo have actually met before they get introduced by Heimerdinger. Preceding the events of Arcane, it is explained by Echo that a young man walks into his store and doesn't even haggle. Famously, this guy doesn't even haggle, and he purchases items and he buys them at double the price, and Echo follows him to the Kiraman workshop. He then proceeds to tell Powder about this Kiraman workshop, and Powder tells Vi about it, and Vi decides they need to go check out that workshop and steal from it. And of course, that is how Arcane kicks off. So really cool that these two characters are meeting again. My boy Jace has really got to learn how to haggle though. Even Soko was on his ass about that.
All we ever wanted. The boy didn't even haggle.
Next up is Jhana worship. There are buildings, paintings, monuments, all dedicated to the worship of Jhana, especially in the Undercity. So instead of saying maybe she might show up in the series, she has already, just as a deity. Deckard's knife. The knife that Huck uses to try and rob Victor of his staff is the same knife that Deckard had, or at least the design is very similar. Maybe it's not the exact same knife. Now this one is one of those ones which is very hard to miss on the list, but Vi ends up with Clagor's goggles. Those are the goggles she sports. Jinx had them for most of the series and was wearing them when she designed Savika's new arm. About Savika's new arm, Jinx actually uses parts from the punching game to create this new arm. This symbolically means that she has accepted that she'll never be as good as Vi in physical combat, and she's no longer chasing that or to top Vi's high score. She's moved on with that, and she's actually using the talent that Vi told her she had, which is engineering. Singed ends up in Freyord. Yes, Singed is the first character to cross over the borders of Piltover and Zorn and end up in a completely new region in the series. We know this because the wild claw that he fights is native to Freyord, and he poison bombs it to get its heart. We can see its heart on the table, and we can also see something else on the table, which is a schematic sheet. And on this page there's a design, a circular design, which somewhat looks like Oriana's ball. Maybe it's me just hoping she'll make an appearance. She was the first champion that I mained, so I do want Riot to give her a bit more love. In that same vein, Margot's building, or Margot's district, that building she has, it does somewhat look like Oriana with Oriana's ball around her. I know it's Margot, but it does kind of look like an Oriana building. Maybe she's coming. The copium is real. Here's another theory that's kind of out there. This moment with Vi struggling to use Jace's hammer, to me feels like a call out or a nod of approval to Marvel and Thor's hammer. If you don't know, in the Marvel universe, Thor's hammer Mjolnir can only be lifted by people it deems worthy. I do believe that Jace having to hold the hammer to help Vi shoot it is a nod to that. There's these paintings of Caitlyn's mother Cassandra, and she used to be an archer. This was before she got the Kierman key, which we can see in the second and third paintings. This freeze frame was very interesting to me because it seems to be telling us that the sigil with an anchor below the S is Counselor Sallow's house. There's also a note which I presume was made by Mel with the word shimmer and question marks next to it. This is probably alluding that Mel is trying to figure out where, how and why Sallow got shimmer and why is he using it. Yes, we can see that Counselor Sallow is recreationally using shimmer, which is probably why Mbessa decides not to back him and to time him, but she was probably going to do that anyway. She probably had the Caitlyn plan for a very long time. Another thing about this scene with Allura and Mel is that Allura feels guilty about not getting the news to Mel about her mother and Sallow's plan. Now obviously it's something she wanted to be on top of as Mel's assistant or spy, but it seems super weird how spooked she really was. It seemed like she was trying to prove that she's on Mel's side. And the more time I spent looking at this scene and analyzing it, the more my previous theory that I mentioned in my last video stuck in my head and something else popped up. And this is big. It suddenly became very strange to me how Mel's tiara somewhat looks like the symbol of LeBlanc's crown. All of this Black Rose talk has really got me looking at the characters different in Arcane. LeBlanc is a trickster, an illusionist, and her possible involvement in the series means that characters might not even be who you think they are, might not be who they say they are. Amara was the first hint towards this, but surely there will be more as this Black Rose arc unfolds. Don't forget that LeBlanc translates from French as the white. Now this is proper crackpot theory time, but Mel always wears the color white, even though she's a Noxian. Now Mel is very likely not LeBlanc, but these small things are worth mentioning when you notice them. It would be crazy if you come back to this video and Mel was LeBlanc the whole time and there's a huge plot twist like that, and you can be like, wow, that was a cool thing to spot. But yeah, the probability is very low on that. You know what, bro, at this point, even small things like Caitlyn firing this shot at Jinx's mirror image does make me feel like we'll see LeBlanc. Bro, I want to see more League of Legends characters. I want to see the characters we know and love being integrated into the world of Arcane. This verse is crazy, and I want to see them get the Arcane treatment because the storytelling, the visuals, everything is fire. And that's all of the stuff you probably missed in Arcane Season 2 Act 1. Let me know if there's some things I missed in the comments and what you thought about all of the speculation. This is Lois signing off. Peace.